This is a ranching area or community, and I hopefully see it within the next 100 years still passed down. But if we don't preserve the land, it's going to go nowhere.
Well, I first started, I first come out, I lived in Browning for 20 years before I come out. I went to work for the state highway for 20 years, and I was in Browning for 10 years. I moved out here for 10, and I got started with Gus. A friend of mine had some hay down there. He was going to Alaska and asked if I would take care of it. I told him, yeah. And my wife told me, she said, why don't you call Gus and see if he want to go with you? So I did, and we've been friends and partners ever since. And it's been 30 years, 40 years now.
15 years ago, when we got into the program, I and Bud Gray, we got involved through NRCS. Then through the process, Ann Stevens was the director at that time. She got us into it, but far as this land at one time, and I'm guilty of anybody for being overgrazing, because we didn't know better. We didn't know how to be stewards of the land. So I got to give the program a lot of credit for what it's taught us over the last few years, because we've became better stewards of the land just through the program. And it's allowed us to actually say, yeah, we can actually make a profit ranching.
Oki Nistuni Doniku and Niskamaki. Hello, my name is Latrice Tatsy. My Indian name is Buffalo Stone Woman. Bud and Gus have participated in EQIP, they've participated in CSP, they participated in some of the FSA programs, the CRP grasslands, the Conservation Reserve Program. The practices that they've been involved in with EQIP was prescribed grazing. I know prior to that it was called rotational grazing. They put in the interior fences, they put in water developments. A lot of the basic infrastructure to get them started with the CSP to continue going with those enhancements. The CSP biological control, that was an enhancement started with their CSP contract, and that's where I really started becoming really involved with them in their operation. I was working with Inca and with APHIS, and so they were enrolled with the NRCS program at the time, and so it was like a partnership. I would go out and collect the bugs, and I would bring them to producers, and Gus and Bud were the producers who were wanting to do it the most.
We wanted to clear up the knapweed that was out here. But this place was bad, really bad, and it changed. Seemed like just overnight. We've been here for 13 years, but this seems like it's been overnight now.
The goal was just to reduce the knapweed and to bring the grasslands back into the prime health, because they were dealing with cars coming in, dropping seeds. They were dealing with nobody spraying the roadside. So once the knapweed was on the roadsides, it was just going in the pasture. So on the Blackfeet Nation, they don't spray the rangelands, and so it just gives the knapweed the opportunity to take over, especially in places where there's a lot of overgrazing. And by doing this project with Gus and them and helping put out the bugs, it's helping them revitalize the grasslands. And that's probably the biggest thing, because if we don't have grasslands, how are we going to have healthy cows? How are we going to have any sustainability when it comes to trying to be a rancher? And so by taking on this project and putting on the bugs, it's almost kind of combating it, because you're taking a non-native species that's been introduced, and you're also taking a biological control that's not from this area and putting on these plant species. So, you know, it takes time, because a lot of these bugs have to acclimate to the climate here. I mean, it's really harsh, and so it takes more time. Then you get a species of bugs where you can actually transplant them to other places because they're adjusted to the weather.
We have 6 different species of biological bugs out here. They all have a certain entity that they do. The one bug drills into the seed head, goes down into the root, and actually kills the weed that way. Then we have another couple bugs that eat the seeds, so they're not transferred by the wind in different areas, so it's more of a spread. Then we have one bug, it will eat the whole stem. And that's the idea of having the different species, because 1 or 2 species can't do the work. Then whatever the bugs don't actually utilize, what cattle we've trained and they've trained others kind of subsidizes, and in an end result you get this.
The benefits that I've seen is just returning lands back to grasslands, grassland prairies, where there's diversities of shrubs and forbs, because when you didn't have that, you had ecological loss and you had cultural loss, because you don't have the plant species that they need for ceremony. You don't have the species that they need for medicinal practices. And so by doing these types of practices, it puts that cultural responsibility back on the producer, but also that relationship we have to the land, because we are depending on a species to come and combat the invasive species. So it's that reciprocal relationship, right? It's like taking care of the land so the land can take care of you. And that's always really important when we think about why we're doing the work that we're doing with NRCS or why we're working with producers.
It's taught us to have better genetics in our cattle. Therefore, the genetics in our cattle can strive more off the land by producing better grasses and not utilizing or overutilizing what's there.
I've seen a lot of difference, but there's more grass than there was. A lot more grass, native grass. Before the knapweed was taken over, it was nothing. I mean, all you see is knapweed. Now you're starting to see the grass come back. I said when I was a kid out here, there used to be all kinds of grass.
What we're hoping to do now is like take producers like Bud and Gus and put on workshops where they can talk about their trials and tribulations and also their successes, because right now it's trying to just get our producers in CSP, and for tribal producers in CSP the numbers are really low. And so for me, my biggest job is to build trust within our tribal producers. And so being a local from here, I think that's going to be the biggest difference, is because we have these programs, we want to work with these producers, we have amazing resources. And so for me, like, I'm that for the producers. You know, they can ask me those questions, and when I don't have those answers, I'll reach out to people and have those questions answered. So then it makes me a better resource for the producers. And so right now it's really about just building that trust and that foundation to really get more producers enrolled in CSP and start them off with EQIP, because EQIP is really about the infrastructural aspect of the NRCS. A lot of people don't have that infrastructure. They don't have the fence, they don't have the water development. And so once we start getting them enrolled in those programs and building those numbers up, then it'll be easier for us to get them in those CSP contracts where they're doing more enhancements.
NRCS has been great to us because, like I said, through the different directors that we've had, they all have a passion for what they're doing. And they've developed a passion within us to keep this program successful for us. And being Native, there's been no discrimination, no racism, because they all have a goal to preserve the land.